Sign the papers, Dad, or we'll have you committed, tonight. My daughter said it like she was ordering coffee. Cold, casual. Her husband just watched, that tight fake smile plastered on his face. They thought I was a grieving old man, easily broken, easily robbed. They were about to learn this old mechanic knew how to fight a war. If this story finds you, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone in this world. My name is Robert, and this is the story of how Christmas Eve became a battlefield, and how I had to destroy my family to save myself. The snow was coming down thick, the kind of snow that swallows sound. It was Christmas Eve. The world outside my old Ford was silent, white, and peaceful. Inside, my stomach was twisted into knots. I pulled up the driveway of my daughter Sarah's house. It wasn't a house, really. It was a fortress. All glass and steel, sharp angles jutting into the gray sky. It looked expensive. It looked cold. It always made me feel small, like I was tracking grease on floors that had never seen real dirt. I hated coming here, but I felt I had to. For her. I clutched the steering wheel. My knuckles turned white. The leather was worn smooth under my grip. In my pocket, the keys to my shop felt heavy. Robert's Repairs. I built that place. 35 years of sweat, busted knuckles, and honest work. It was where I belonged. It was where Martha, my late wife, used to bring me lunch. Every Thursday, meatloaf sandwiches wrapped in wax paper. This mansion, Martha would have hated it. She liked warmth, wood, the smell of baking bread and real pie. Sarah and her husband, Michael, liked things that showed how much money they had. Or at least, how much money they wanted people to think they had. I sighed. The sound was loud in the quiet car. 6 months since Martha passed. 6 months, so silence. The grief was a heavy coat. I couldn't take off. I just learned to move under the weight. Sarah had insisted I come for dinner. You shouldn't be alone, Dad, she had said. Come be with the family. Her voice sounded sweet. But lately, there was an edge to it. A sharpness I didn't recognize. Michael worked in finance. Investments. Risks. Words that made my head spin. They looked tired lately. Stressed. Tighter around the eyes. The smiles didn't quite reach. I told myself it was just the pressure of their jobs. I was wrong. The pressure was real, but I didn't know the dark secret behind it. I grabbed the small, wrapped gift for my grandson, Ethan. A model car kit. An old Mustang. He was 7. A good kid. Quiet. Maybe too quiet. I got out of the car. The snow crunched under my boots. It felt like the only real sound in the world. The air was freezing. It bit at my face. I pulled my coat tighter. Something felt wrong even before I stepped inside. A stillness in the air, a sense of foreboding. The front door opened before I reached the steps. It was Michael, my son-in-law. He was wearing a tailored suit. Dark gray on Christmas Eve. Who does that? Robert, glad you made it, Michael said. His smile was wide. A politician's smile. It didn't reach his eyes. His eyes were cold, calculating. He didn't offer a hand. He just stepped back, gesturing me into the cavernous entryway. The roads are getting slick, I said. I stamped the snow off my boots on the expensive mat. A little snow fell onto the polished marble floor anyway. We have people to handle that, Michael replied smoothly. His tone suggested I was foolish for driving myself. He always had an answer, always a reminder that his world was cleaner than mine. And somehow, better, he closed the door. The lock clicked. It sounded very final. The inside of the house was vast. A huge Christmas tree stood in the foyer. It must have been 15 feet tall, decorated entirely in silver and blue. It looked like something out of a magazine. It didn't smell like pine. It didn't smell like anything at all. It was sterile, lifeless. Where's Sarah? I asked. My voice echoed slightly in the huge space. Finishing up in the kitchen, Michael said, Come on through to the dining room. We're about to eat. He didn't wait for me. He just started walking, expecting me to follow. I followed him through the echoing halls. They had paintings on the walls. Big, Ajax things. Splashes of angry color. They meant nothing to me. This house felt empty, even with them living here. It was a showpiece, not a home. We reached the dining room. The table was long, dark wood polished to a high shine. Crystal glasses sparkled under a modern chandelier that looked like icicles. It was all perfect. And yet, it felt completely wrong. It felt like a trap. Sarah was there, placing napkins on the table. She looked beautiful, a dark red dress, pearls around her neck. But they weren't the pearls Martha had given her. Those were simple. These were large. Gaudy. Ethan sat at the far end, lost in an electronic tablet. His face bathed in the blue light. He didn't even look up. He lived in this museum, afraid to touch anything. Dad! Sarah rushed over. She kissed my cheek. Quick. Automatic, like checking a box. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, honey. I looked at Ethan. Hey, buddy. Ethan looked up briefly. His eyes were big, sad. Hi, Grandpa. He immediately looked back down at his screen. Ethan, put that away. Now, Michael said sharply. His tone was like a whip crack. Ethan flinched. He quickly slid the tablet under his chair. He didn't just obey. He reacted in fear. My grandson was scared of his own father. I didn't like that. Not one bit. We sat down. The chairs were heavy velvet. The food was already on the table. A roast turkey glistening under the lights. Potatoes. Fancy vegetables. I didn't recognize. It looked like a painting. Not like food you were supposed to eat. I looked at the table setting. Me at one end. Sarah and Michael on either side of me. Ethan further down. Isolated. But then I saw it. One extra place setting. Right across from me. My blood ran cold. This dinner was a setup. I knew it in my gut. Were we expecting someone else? I asked. I tried to keep my voice casual, light. Sarah and Michael exchanged a look. Fast. A flicker of something, nervousness. Anticipation? I couldn't read it, but I felt it. A shift in the air pressure. A colleague of mine, Michael said. He picked up the wine bottle. His hand was steady. Too steady. He's just dropping by, briefly. Business. Business? On Christmas Eve? I raised an eyebrow. It seemed strange. Even for Michael. Money never sleeps, Robert. Michael chuckled. It sounded forced. Hollow. Fake. He was lying. But why? Just then the doorbell rang. A deep, echoing chime. It sounded like a church bell. Tolling for a funeral. I'll get it, Sarah said. She stood up too quickly. Her chair scraped against the floor. She smoothed her dress. She looked nervous, like she was about to go on stage. She left the room. The silence she left behind was heavy. Michael watched her go. His eyes narrowed slightly. Then he turned to me. His face relaxed into that smooth, practiced mask. But his eyes were like sharks, dead and hungry. So, Robert, how's the shop doing? Keeping busy? Michael asked. He didn't care about the shop. Busy enough, I said. I picked up my fork. I wasn't hungry. Had a tough job on an old Chevy last week. Carburetor issue. Still thinking about retiring? Michael asked. He swirled his wine in the glass, watching the red liquid spin. Not looking at me. Retiring? I paused. We had talked about this before, but tonight it felt different. Loaded? Not yet. I like working. Keeps my mind sharp. Good, good, Michael murmured. He wasn't listening. He was waiting. But what was he waiting for? I could hear footsteps approaching the dining room. 2 sets. Sarah and someone else. Someone with heavy, measured steps. Sarah returned. Her face was pale. Behind her walked a man. He was tall, sharp shoulders, gray hair slicked back. He wore a very expensive-looking Gork suit, black, not gray. His face was stern, impassive, like a stone statue. He carried a thin leather briefcase. This wasn't a colleague. This was a weapon. Dad, this is... Sarah started. Her voice trembled. The man stepped forward. He didn't wait for the introduction. Good evening, he said. His voice was cold, professional, flat. He didn't introduce himself. Michael stood up, suddenly energized. Please, have a seat. He indicated the empty chair, the one directly across from me, the executioner's seat. The man sat down. He placed his briefcase on the floor beside him. Deliberately, precisely. He didn't look at the food. He didn't look at the decorations. He folded his hands on the table and looked directly at me. The room suddenly felt much colder. The silence was tight, uncomfortable. It felt like the moment before a car crash. Ethan was staring at the man. His eyes were wide. He was shrinking back in his chair. The kid knew. He knew this man was trouble. I tried to break the ice. I was used to putting people at ease at the shop, making them feel comfortable. "Well, Merry Christmas," I said to the man in the suit. I offered a hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Robert, Sarah's father." The man looked at my hand. He didn't take it. He nodded slowly. Once, he said nothing. This was getting strange. It wasn't just rude. It felt deliberate, a power play, a way to make me feel small, insignificant. I decided to ask directly. I looked him straight in the eye. "What's your name?" The man in the suit blinked. Once. Slow. He glanced at Michael. Then back at me. He remained silent. A chill traced its way down my spine. Why wouldn't he tell me his name? What kind of business meeting was this? I looked at Sarah. She was picking at her food, her eyes downcast. She wouldn't look at me, my own daughter. I looked at Michael. He was watching me, that same tight smile plastered on his face. But his eyes were sharp, alert. "Is it a secret?" I tried to joke. The words fell flat in the heavy air. They died on the table. The man didn't respond. He just watched me, unblinking. His silence was louder than a scream. My heart started to beat faster. Something was very wrong. This wasn't a Christmas dinner. This was an intervention, or worse. The way Sarah had said family on the phone echoed in my mind. It felt like a setup. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, grateful for the distraction. Maybe it was my neighbor, Mrs. Gable, checking on my cat, Rusty. It was a text message. From an unknown number. I opened it. The message was short. "Stark, terrifying. Soar, run away, immediately." I froze. The blood drained from my face. I read the message again, and again. The words burned into my eyes. "Run away? From my daughter's house? On Christmas Eve? Who sent this? And why?" I looked up from the phone. Michael, Sarah, the man in the suit. They were all watching me. Their faces were masks. Cold, unreadable. "Everything all right, Robert?" Michael asked. His voice was too smooth, too controlled. Like oil on water. I couldn't speak. My throat felt tight. I couldn't breathe. I looked at Sarah, my little girl, the one I taught to ride a bike, the one I held when Martha got sick. She wouldn't look at me. Her eyes were fixed on the tablecloth. Betrayal. It tasted like ash in my mouth. I need to use the restroom," I stammered. I pushed my chair back slightly. I needed a moment. I needed to think. To process the warning. "Wait." Michael's voice changed. It was no longer smooth. It was sharp, commanding. The mask had slipped. "We need to talk first, Robert. It's important." I stopped, half standing. My legs felt weak. "Talk about what?" My voice shook. Michael nodded to the man in the suit. The man reached down. He picked up his briefcase. He placed it on the table. The sound of the leather against the wood was loud in the silent room. He opened it. The clasp snapped open, sharp metallic sounds. He pulled out a stack of papers, thick, legal documents. He slid them across the polished wood table towards me. They stopped right in front of my plate. I stared at the papers. The overhead light glared off the stark white pages. I could read the heading on the top page. Bold letters, black ink, petition for emergency guardianship. My stomach dropped. The room spun slightly. The world tilted. Guardianship? What is this? I asked. My voice was barely a whisper. I felt cold, so cold. The man in the suit finally spoke. His voice was devoid of any emotion. "My name is Mr. Davis. I am an attorney representing your daughter and son-in-law." So that was his name. Mr. Davis. The silence hadn't been a mistake. It had been a tactic, a way to intimidate me, to soften me up before the execution. "Guardianship," I repeated. The word felt foreign, dirty. I looked at Sarah. "Honey, what is he talking about?" Sarah? Sarah started to cry, softly at first, then louder. But they weren't real tears. I could tell. I had wiped away enough of her real tears over the years. I knew the difference. These were for show, a performance from Mr. Davis. Dad, it's for your own good, she sniffled. She dabbed at her eyes with the expensive linen napkin. She still wouldn't look at me. My own good. Anger surged through me. Hot, sharp anger, replacing the fear. I am perfectly fine. I run a business. I live alone. I take care of myself. Are you Robert? Michael said. He leaned forward. His tone was condescending. Patronizing. Are you really? You've been struggling since Martha died. We're worried about you. I'm grieving, I said, my voice rising. That's normal. That's what happens when you lose someone you love. It's more than that, Dad, Sarah said. Her voice trembled. It was a good performance, almost convincing. You're confused, forgetful. I am not confused. The electric bill, Sarah said, pressing on. Last month, you forgot to pay it. The power was almost shut off at the shop. Remember? You called me in a panic. I stared at her. The breath left my body. Yes, that had happened. I had been overwhelmed. Martha always handled the bills. But Sarah had offered help. She had insisted. She set up the online payments. She said it would be easier. If the bill wasn't paid, it was because she hadn't paid it. The realization hit me like a physical blow. It knocked the wind out of me. They set me up. They deliberately created evidence. They manufactured my decline. It was calculated, cruel, and the other day, Michael continued. His voice was relentless, pressing his advantage, twisting the knife. You got lost, driving home from the grocery store. You called us terrified. You didn't know where you were. I didn't get lost. I protested. My voice sounded weak, defensive, even to my own ears. There was construction, a detour. The main road was closed. I just got turned around for a minute. They were twisting everything, taking small moments of grief, of adjustment, and turning them into symptoms of dementia. Mr. Davis cleared his throat. He tapped the documents with a long, pale finger. He was calm, detached, like he was discussing the weather, not destroying a man's life. The documents outline our concerns regarding your declining cognitive health, your ability to manage your finances, and your business. My business? My business? I looked at the second stack of papers. Mr. Davis slid them forward. Deed, transfer, and power of attorney. It clicked. It all clicked. The forced smiles, the questions about retirement, the manufactured evidence. This wasn't about my health. This wasn't about concern. They weren't just trying to take control of me. They wanted the shop. My shop. Robert's repairs. My life's work. The place I built for Martha. You want the shop? I said. The anger was cold now, settling deep in my bones. I looked at Michael. Michael's mask slipped completely. The greed underneath was ugly, raw. The property is valuable, Robert. It's prime real estate. And the business itself, he scoffed. It's failing under your management. We can revitalize it. We can make it profitable again. It is profitable, I insisted. It provides a good living. I have loyal customers. We have different definitions of good living, Michael sneered. He gestured around the opulent room, the crystal, the velvet, the cold, empty space. This lifestyle requires capital. They wanted to tear down 35 years of my life to save their mansion. My phone buzzed again in my hand. I had been clutching it tightly. I glanced down. The unknown number again. They are locking the doors. The back kitchen exit is your only chance. I looked up quickly. Through the dining room window, I could see movement outside in the snow. A man in a dark uniform. Security. They had hired private security to keep me in. To trap me. Michael saw where I was looking. He smiled faintly. A cruel, satisfied smile. Just a precaution, Robert. We want this transition to be smooth. We don't want you getting upset and running off. I was trapped in my daughter's house by my own family. The word felt bitter in my mouth. Family. The betrayal was complete. The walls were closing in. I looked at Sarah. I needed to reach her. I needed to find the little girl I raised beneath the layers of greed and desperation. I needed to remind her of who we were. Sarah, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Raw. Your mother, what would she think of this? She loved that shop. She loved us. We were a real family. For a moment I saw it, a flicker in Sarah's eyes. Guilt, shame, pain. Her lip trembled. A real tear tracked down her cheek. Maybe my daughter was still in there somewhere. But then Michael reached out. He put his hand over hers. Tight. A warning. A threat. Sarah, we talked about this, he said. His voice was low. Intense. We need this. You know we need this. He looked up at me, his eyes blazing with a desperate fury. You don't understand, Robert. You live in your little bubble, your little shop. You have no idea what's happening in the real world. He leaned closer. Our investments are failing. The market is unstable. He paused, his face darkening. We are drowning in debt. This house, we could lose everything. Everything. So that was it. The truth finally spilled out. They weren't just greedy. They were desperate. They were cornered animals, and they were willing to destroy me, to save themselves, to save their lifestyle. But I didn't know yet how deep their desperation ran, or the crimes they were hiding. Ethan, who had been silent this whole time, forgotten in the chaos, suddenly started to cry. Real tears, hiccuping sobs. The sound was heartbreaking. Don't hurt, Grandpa, he whispered. He looked at his mother, pleading, please don't hurt him. The innocence in his voice shattered the tension in the room. It exposed the ugliness of what was happening. Ethan, be quiet. Michael snapped. His face reddened with anger. He turned on his son, his expression furious. The veneer of civilization vanishing. Go to your room. Now. Ethan flinched as if he had been struck. He scrambled out of his chair. He looked at me, his eyes filled with terror. Then he ran, his small footsteps echoing in the hallway. The sight of my grandson's fear shattered something inside me. This was not just about money. It wasn't just about the shop. This was about cruelty, a complete lack of empathy, a complete lack of love. They didn't see me as a father, as a person. They saw me as an obstacle, an asset to be seized, a problem to be solved. I will not sign these papers, I said. My voice was shaking, but not with fear, with rage. I pushed the documents back across the table. They slid towards Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis looked unfazed, calm, professional. I'm afraid you don't have a choice, Robert. I demand to call my lawyer, I said. Jonathan Pierce, I have rights. You do, Mr. Davis agreed. His voice was maddeningly calm. But based on the evidence we presented to a judge this morning, the unpaid bills, the documented incidents of confusion, temporary emergency guardianship has already been granted. He paused. To your daughter and son-in-law, pending a full hearing, of course. They had planned everything, meticulously, ruthlessly. They had orchestrated this ambush on Christmas Eve, when the courts were closed, when I would be isolated, vulnerable, alone. They thought they had won. You can't do this, I said. I stood up. My legs were trembling. I will fight you, every step of the way. Michael stood up too. He faced me. He was taller than me, younger, stronger, but he was soft. He had never done a day of hard labor in his life. Sit down, Robert, he ordered. His voice was cold, final. You have two choices. You can sign the papers, cooperate, and enjoy a comfortable retirement under our care. In a very nice facility we've picked out, a facility, a nursing home, a prison. Or, Michael continued, you can resist, and if you resist, we will have you hospitalized. Tonight, involuntarily committed for a psychiatric evaluation, he pointed to the window, to the security guards standing in the snow. They are trained to handle difficult situations. They will restrain you if necessary. They were going to lock me away, make me disappear. I looked at the pen Mr. Davis had placed on the table, black and silver, expensive. I looked at the documents. The words blurred. I looked at my daughter, Sarah was staring at the floor, her shoulders slumped. A coward. They had me backed into a corner. They held all the cards. I was old, tired, grieving, and utterly alone. But I thought about Martha, her smile, her strength. I thought about the shop, the smell of oil and gasoline, the satisfaction of a job well done. I thought about Ethan's terrified face. If I signed those papers, I would lose more than just the shop. I would lose myself, my freedom, my dignity. I would become a prisoner in their cold, sterile world, a ghost in a facility. I couldn't let that happen. Martha wouldn't want that. I had to run. The text message. The kitchen exit. I had to try. I looked at the heavy dining table. It was laden with food. Crystal, silver. It was solid oak, an antique Michael had boasted about. Expensive, heavy. I looked at Michael, arrogant, sure of his victory. I looked at Mr. Davis, the cold instrument of my destruction. I made my decision. I wasn't going down without a fight. I reached out, slowly, deliberately, as if I was going to pick up the pen. Michael relaxed slightly. A smirk played on his lips. He thought I was broken. Then, with a sudden surge of adrenaline, I grabbed the edge of the table with both hands. I didn't just push it. I heaved it. I put all my weight, all my rage, all my desperation into that one movement. 35 years of lifting engines fueled that shove. The heavy table overturned with a deafening crash. It was chaos. Crystal shattered. Wine spilled like blood across the white floor. The turkey went flying. Plates smashed. Michael and Mr. Davis yelled. Shock, pain, the edge of the table slammed into their legs. Hard, they stumbled backward, falling over the debris, tangled in the velvet chairs. Sarah screamed, a high-pitched, piercing sound. She jumped back from the chaos, her eyes wide with shock. I didn't wait to see the damage. I didn't wait for their reaction. I turned and ran. I sprinted towards the kitchen, my boots slipping on the polished floor. Adrenaline pumped through me. I felt alive, more alive than I had in months. Stop him! Michael roared from the dining room. His voice was filled with fury. Guard! Stop him! Don't let him leave! I burst through the kitchen door. It was bright. Stainless steel everywhere. Cold. Clinical. I looked around wildly. The back exit. Where was it? There, behind the large industrial refrigerator. I heard heavy footsteps pounding in the hallway. The security guard. He was coming fast. I reached the door. I fumbled with the lock. It was a deadbolt. Complicated. Modern. I twisted it. My hands were shaking. Come on. Come on. The kitchen door burst open behind me. The security guard, big, broad-shouldered. He filled the doorway. Sir, you need to stop right there, he ordered. I got the lock open. I yanked the door open. The cold night air hit my face. Freedom. I stumbled out onto the snowy back patio. The guard lunged for me. His hand brushed my shoulder. I pulled away. I kept running. Where could I go? The yard was fenced. High walls. I couldn't run far on foot. My lungs were burning. Then I saw it. A small, dark car, idling silently near the gate of the service entrance. The exhaust pluming in the cold air. The driver's side window rolled down. A young woman's face, pale, scared. I recognized her vaguely. Emily, the new caretaker. The maid, Sarah, had hired her a few weeks ago. She was always quiet, invisible. She must have been the one who sent the text messages. My guardian angel. Get in, she yelled, her voice urgent, desperate. Hurry! They are coming. I ran towards the car, slipping on the ice. My heart hammered against my ribs. I heard a shout behind me. Michael. He had made it out of the dining room. Stop him. Get him. The security guard was right behind me. Closing the distance, I reached the car. I yanked open the passenger door. I dove inside. Emily didn't wait for me to close the door. She slammed her foot on the accelerator. The small car fishtailed on the snow. The tires spun. Then they gripped the pavement. We shot forward, through the open service gate, onto the street. In the rearview mirror, I saw the security guard stop at the gate. Michael running towards him. his face contorted with rage. We sped away into the night, leaving the cold mansion. The shattered Christmas dinner, the betrayal, behind us. I looked back once. The house looked like a tomb in the darkness. Hours later, we were sitting in a brightly lit diner off the highway. Miles away, the smell of coffee and fried food was comforting. Real, the sound of clattering dishes was a stark contrast to the cold silence of Sarah's house. I was safe. For now. Emily sat across from me, her hands wrapped around a warm mug of coffee. She looked exhausted, but relieved. She couldn't have been older than 25. "How did you know?" I asked her. My voice was still shaky. The adrenaline was fading. The reality of what had happened was sinking in. "I overheard them," she said quietly. "Mr. Michael and your daughter, they were talking in his office last night. I was cleaning. They didn't see me." She shook her head, disgusted. "They were planning everything. The lawyer, the documents, the security. The judge they knew would sign off on the emergency order." She looked up at me. Her eyes were filled with a sincerity I hadn't seen in my own daughter's eyes for years. They were so casual about it, so cold, like they were discussing a business deal, not destroying a man's life. "Why did you help me?" I asked. "You risked everything." "I couldn't let them do it," she said. "It was wrong. It was cruel." She paused. "I prayed you would get my message. I prayed you would run." "You saved me," I said. Gratitude overwhelmed me. "Thank you, Emily." The stranger, this young woman had shown me more kindness, more loyalty than my own flesh and blood. She was more family than the family I had just escaped. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the keys to my shop. They felt heavy, solid, real. It still had the shop. I still had my freedom. But the war had just started. Michael and Sarah were desperate. And desperate people are dangerous. They still held the temporary guardianship order. They could still have me committed. But something had changed inside me. I was no longer the grieving old man. I was angry. I was determined. I picked up my phone. My hands were steady now. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold determination. I dialed the number. Jonathan Pierce. My lawyer, an old friend. We had known each other for 30 years. He was a good man, a fighter. The phone rang 3 times. Then a familiar gruff voice answered. "John Pierce." "John," I said, my voice clear and strong. "It's Robert." "Robert? Merry Christmas. Why are you calling so late?" "I need your help," I said. "I've got a fight on my hands, and we need to move fast." The next morning wasn't Christmas. It felt like the morning before a battle. I met John at his office. It was closed for the holiday, but he came in. John was older than me, sharp, dressed in an old cardigan. He listened patiently, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he leaned back, rubbing his temples. "They got temporary guardianship," John sighed. "That's a low, Robert, especially on Christmas Eve. They knew the courts would be jammed. They played this dirty. They said I was confused, that I missed bill payments." "The electric bill?" John asked, his eyes narrowing. "Yes. Sarah set up automatic payments for me months ago. She managed the account." John nodded slowly. "So she intentionally withheld payment to create a paper trail against you."
That's calculated.
"That's malice." "We need to prove 2 things, Robert," John said, leaning forward. "First, that you are fully competent. Second, that they are acting with malicious financial motivation." "I am competent, John. I know that. But we need the court to know it. I'm scheduling you for a full cognitive evaluation with Dr. Anya Sharma. She's the best in the state. Her word is gold. Fine. What about Michael and Sarah? What's their weakness?" "Michael works at Apex Financial, right?" John started typing on his computer. "Let's see what kind of year Apex is having." He frowned as he scrolled. "Not good. Market downturn hit them hard. Major losses in their tech portfolio. Rumors of restructuring. Maybe even layoffs. Michael said they were drowning in debt. I remembered. That they could lose the house. He wasn't lying about that. Then they are desperate," John said. "And desperate people make mistakes. They want your SART because it's prime real estate. Unmortgaged. A quick cash injection. They want to tear down 35 years of my life to save their mansion. We need to find out how deep the hole is," John said. I'm going to hire a forensic accountant, a shark. His name is Marcus Tate. He'll dig into their bank statements, investment portfolios, tax returns. We'll follow the money. The idea of exposing their secrets felt good. They tried to humiliate me. Now it was my turn to expose them. The next few days were a blur. I stayed in a small motel near the shop. I couldn't go home. Michael might send his security there. I felt like a fugitive. I met Dr. Sharma. Her office was calm, quiet. We talked for hours. About Martha, the shop, how I diagnosed engine problems. It wasn't tests with shapes and numbers. It was a conversation. Mr. Robert, Dr. Sharma said at the end, smiling gently. She was a sharp woman, maybe in her 50s, with kind eyes. You have a healthy, sharp mind. Grief is not dementia. I will state that clearly and unequivocally in my report. One victory down, but the biggest battle was still ahead. A week later, John called. His voice was excited. Marcus Tate found something, John said. Michael isn't just in debt. He's leveraged to the hilt. He borrowed money from less than reputable sources. Loan sharks? Worse, John said. Private investors with very strict repayment terms. And he defaulted. How much does he owe? Millions, Robert. And they are leaning on him. Hard. He needed the money from your shop yesterday. This explained the desperation, the ruthlessness. Michael wasn't just facing financial ruin. He was facing physical danger. But we still needed proof. Proof that the court would accept. Michael's lawyers are fighting the subpoena for his Apex records. John continued, claiming client confidentiality. They're stalling, Robert. What do we do? We're running out of time. We need someone on the inside, John said. Someone who knows where the bodies are buried at Apex. Someone who knows what Michael was really doing. I don't know anyone there. I might, John said. I did some digging. There was a junior analyst at Apex, David Chen, fired suddenly 3 months ago. No reason given. He's been laying low ever since. You think Michael fired him? David Chen saw something he shouldn't have, and I think he might be ready to talk. If this story is hitting home for you, if you've ever felt the sting of betrayal, please hit the like button and subscribe. It helps us share these stories and remind others they aren't alone in their fight. We met David Chen in a parking garage downtown. He was young, maybe 30, constantly looking over his shoulder. Nervous energy radiated off him. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Mr. Chen, John said calmly, we believe you have information about Michael Harrison's activities at Apex. Chen shook his head rapidly. I can't. He ruined me. Blackballed me in the industry. I signed an NDA. I can't risk it. He's trying to steal my life, I said, stepping forward. I showed him the grease under my nails, the exhaustion in my eyes. He's using his own daughter to do it. He told me they are desperate. Why? Chen looked at me. He saw the truth in my face. He sighed, the fight draining out of him. Michael isn't just in debt. He's committed massive fraud. The word hung in the cold air of the garage. Fraud. He lost a massive amount of client money on a risky tech stock. Chen explained, his voice low, rapid. The same stock he leveraged his own fortune on. Instead of reporting it, he started shifting funds, embezzling from older, inactive accounts to cover the losses. A classic Ponzi scheme. That's why he needs the money from my shop, I realized, to cover his tracks before he gets caught, before the audit. Exactly, Chen said. The SEC is sniffing around. The walls were closing in. He needed a clean cash injection. Fast. Your shop was his golden ticket. Do you have proof? John asked, his voice sharp. Chen hesitated. He looked terrified. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a small, black USB drive. I made a copy of the transaction logs before they wiped my server, Chen whispered. It's all here. The dates, the amounts, the accounts he stole from, the fake reports he generated. This was it. The weapon we needed. The smoking gun. If I give this to you, Chen said, his voice trembling, you have to protect me. Michael will destroy me. He has connections. We will, John promised. But we need you to testify. We need you to put a face to the fraud, Chen nodded reluctantly. He was scared, but he was also angry. Michael had ruined his career. Now it was his turn for payback. The guardianship hearing was scheduled for January 15th. The courtroom was packed. Michael and Sarah arrived, looking confident, arrogant. They wore matching gray suits. Mr. Davis walked beside them, whispering in Michael's ear. They saw me sitting with John. Michael smirked. He thought he had already won. He thought I was just a confused old man, easily disposed of. I stared straight ahead. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. I was ready. Judge Eleanor Vance presided. She had a reputation for being stern, fair, and absolutely intolerant of predatory behavior. John had had strings to get her assigned to the case. Mr. Davis spoke first. He was smooth, oily. He painted a picture of a grieving widower slipping into dementia. He mentioned the missed electric bill, the construction detour incident. He called me a danger to myself. Your Honor, Davis said, his voice dripping with fake sympathy. Mr. Robert is unable to manage his affairs. His daughter and son-in-law are simply trying to protect him and his assets. They love him very much. He made it sound so reasonable, so caring. It made me sick to my stomach. Then it was John's turn. He stood up, calm and collected. He started by introducing Dr. Sharma's report. Dr. Sharma, a leading expert in geriatric psychology, found Mr. Robert to be fully competent, lucid, and capable. John stated, handing the report to the judge. In fact, she had his cognitive abilities were above average for a man his age. Davis objected, claiming Dr. Sharma was biased. The judge overruled him. She read the report, her expression unreadable. Now let's talk about the electric bill, John continued. He called Sarah to the stand. Sarah looked nervous. She avoided my eyes. She twisted the pearls around her neck. The expensive ones. Mrs. Harrison, John began, his voice polite but firm. You testified that your father missed a payment because he was confused. Is that correct? Yes. He forgot. Didn't you take control of his online billing account several months prior? After your mother passed away? Sarah hesitated. I was just helping him organize. He was overwhelmed. So the automatic payment was scheduled through an account you managed. An account you had the password to? I suppose so. Then how could he forget? John pressed. Did you, in fact, manually cancel that payment to create the illusion of his incompetence? Did you deliberately try to have his powers shut off? No, Sarah gasped, looking at Michael. Michael was glaring at her, his face a mask of rage. We have the transaction logs from the electric company, John said, holding up a piece of paper. The payment was canceled at 10:34 p.m. on November 12th. From an IP address registered to your home. From your laptop. Sarah started to cry. Real tears this time. The mask was cracking. The reality of what she had done was sinking in. You set him up, John said softly. Your own father. Why? We needed the shop, Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Michael said we were going to lose everything. He said this was the only way. 'Cause of his debt? John asked. Because of the money he owed? Mr. Davis shot to his feet. Objection. Relevance. This is a guardianship hearing, not a financial audit. It is entirely relevant, Your Honor, John countered. It establishes motive for the petitioner's malicious attempt to seize Mr. Robert's assets under false pretenses. It proves this was never about his well-being. It was about their greed. Judge Vance nodded slowly. I agree. The objection is overruled. Mr. Pierce, proceed, but tread carefully. John turned his attention to Michael. He called him to the stand. Michael walked up confidently. He still thought he could bluff his way out of this. Mr. Harrison, John said, his voice hardening, you claim to be a successful financial advisor, yet your recent investments have failed spectacularly, haven't they? Michael scoffed. The market is volatile. We take calculated risks. Is calculated risk what you call losing millions of dollars of your own money on tech stocks? Is that what you call defaulting on loans from private investors? Michael flinched. He hadn't expected us to know about the private investors. And is calculated risk what you call embezzling funds from your clients at Apex Financial to cover those losses? The courtroom gasped. Michael went pale. His arrogance evaporated. "That is a slanderous accusation," Michael shouted, looking at the judge. "He has no proof. Is it?" John signaled to the bailiff. "I would like to call Mr. David Chin to the stand." Michael's eyes widened in shock. He hadn't expected to see Chin. He watched, paralyzed as Chin walked to the stand and was sworn in. Chin, nervous but resolute, detailed Michael's scheme: the failed investments, the covered tracks, the embezzlement, the Ponzi scheme. John presented the USB drive as evidence. The transaction logs, the proof, the undeniable truth. Michael was trapped. His world, his expensive, cold world, was crumbling around him. "He's lying," Michael yelled, jumping up. "He's a disgruntled employee. I fired him for incompetence. You can't believe him. Sit down, Mr. Harrison, or I will have you removed from this courtroom," Judge Vance ordered, slamming her gavel. Michael looked at Sarah, pleading, begging her to save him. But Sarah just stared at the floor, sobbing quietly. She wouldn't save him. She couldn't. The courtroom was silent, except for Sarah's cries. The truth was out, ugly and exposed, under the harsh courtroom lights. Judge Vance looked at the evidence. Then she looked at me. Her eyes softened slightly. "Mr. Robert," she said, her voice clear and strong, "it is the opinion of this court that you are entirely capable of managing your own affairs. The petition to emergency guardianship is denied. Relief washed over me. I was free. I had won, but the judge wasn't finished." She turned her gaze to Michael and Sarah. Her eyes were like ice. "As for the petitioners," she continued, her voice laced with contempt, "I find your actions reprehensible. To prey upon a grieving father, to fabricate evidence of his decline for financial gain. It is predatory. It is cruel. Furthermore," she addressed Michael directly, "the evidence presented regarding your activities at Apex Financial is deeply troubling. I am referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office and the SEC for immediate investigation. Mr. Harrison, I suggest you find a criminal defense attorney. You are going to need one." Michael stared, speechless. His life was over. We walked out of the courtroom. I felt lighter than I had in months. The heavy coat of grief was still there, but the fear was gone. "It's over, Robert," John said, clapping me on the shoulder. "We did it, John. Thank you." David Chen was waiting outside. "They arrested him," he said, pointing down the hall. 2 detectives were leading Michael away in handcuffs. He looked back once, his face a mixture of rage and disbelief. I felt nothing. No pity, no satisfaction, just emptiness. Sarah was standing alone near the elevators. She looked small, broken. The expensive suit was wrinkled. The pearls were gone. She saw me and walked over slowly. "Dad," she whispered. Her eyes were red, swollen. I'm so sorry." I looked at her. My daughter. The little girl I taught to ride a bike. Now she was a stranger. "I know," I said. My voice was tired. "Michael forced me," she pleaded, the words rushing out. "I didn't want to. We were going to lose the house." He said people were threatening him. I was scared. "You were scared?" I said, the anger rising again. "You trapped me in your home. You tried to have me committed. You were willing to steal my life's work. You were willing to sacrifice me. I know, it was wrong. You didn't just betray me, Sarah. You betrayed your mother's memory. You betrayed your son, Ethan." I thought about his terrified face at the dinner table. "Where is Ethan?" I asked. "He's with the nanny," Sarah said. He's been asking for you." I sighed. I couldn't abandon Ethan. He was the innocent victim in their greedy scheme. "I want custody," I said. "He shouldn't be raised by you." "Not now." Sarah looked shocked, but she didn't fight me. She knew she had no right to. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. I didn't know if I could ever forgive her, but I knew I had to protect Ethan. I went back to the shop. "Robert's Repairs." The sign was faded, but it was still standing. I unlocked the door and walked inside. The smell of oil, metal, and old coffee welcomed me. This was home. I walked through the bays, touching the tools. My tools. I sat in the small office where Martha used to sit. I opened the drawer and pulled out a photo of her, smiling, holding a greasy wrench. "We won, Martha," I whispered. I saved the shop. Tears finally came. Not tears of grief, but of release. The next week, I brought Ethan home. He was quiet at first, scared, confused. But slowly, he started to open up. He loved the shop. He loved watching me work. His laughter echoed in the garage. It was the warmest sound I had heard in a long time. Months passed. Michael pleaded guilty to multiple counts of embezzlement and fraud. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Sarah was charged with conspiracy to commit fraud and elder abuse. She took a plea deal, 2 years probation, and community service. She lost the mansion, everything. She moved into a small apartment across town. Our relationship was broken, maybe forever, but we saw each other sometimes for Ethan. It was strained, awkward, but necessary. Emily, the caretaker who saved me, came to work at the shop. She hedged the front desk, organizing the chaos. She brought warmth and kindness to the place. She became the daughter I thought I had lost. David Chun got his career back on track. He even stopped by the shop sometimes, to say hello. It was Christmas Eve again, 1 year since the ambush. The snow was falling softly outside the shop. I was working late, finishing up a repair. Ethan was sitting in the office, drawing pictures of cars. Emily was making hot chocolate. I looked around the shop. It wasn't a mansion of glass and steel. It was small, cluttered, and smelled of oil. But it was mine. I had fought for it. I had won. I lost my daughter, but I found my strength. I was an old mechanic. I fixed broken things. And sometimes I broke the things that tried to break me. I wiped the grease from my hands and locked the door. "Come on, guys," I said. "Let's go home." We walked out into the snow together. The world was cold, but I felt a spark of warmth inside. I was a survivor, and that was enough. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot, because your time matters.